Welcome to another episode of the Empower Good podcast. I am thrilled to have my friend Eddie Wilson on the podcast today. Eddie has had ownership in more than 125 companies and has successfully exited more than 85 of them, earning him the title, the Exit King. Eddie is the owner of CEO of Think Realty, the world's largest investment media platform. Eddie is also the owner and CEO of AAPL, the American Association of Private Lenders, the world's largest aggregation of private lending capital. Eddie is the host of one of my favorite podcasts, Titan Talk, as well as starting and hosting many of the episodes on his Think Realty podcast. Among other things, Eddie is also known for being a thought leader and a culture shaper, creating communities and business that foster success, building processes that create sustainable business models, and seeing the brilliance in people, thereby helping them to capitalize on that asset for themselves. Eddie collaborates with a fellow real estate mogul, Andrew Cordell, to lead the Aspire to Greatness tour that will be in Denver on May 11th and in 7 more locations around the nation over the next 7 months. Aspire hosts many powerful and inspirational guests, such as Marcus Lemonis, the Prophet, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, Nick Santoso, Magic Johnson, Super Bowl Hall of Famer TD, Terrell Davis, and many more. Eddie, you are a titan in this industry, and I thank you for coming on the pod, despite my gravelly voice today, to discuss leveraging business to empower good. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Life's
Great.
good.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate you coming on here. So what's your story? We know that you are a third generation real estate investor, but you're so much more than that. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I actually started in TV and radio broadcasting, and in my 20s, sold a TV show to Fox, and really understood for the very first time in my 20s that I could create something that, even though it was only generating so much cash flow, had an exponential value to someone else. And so kind of early on in my career, I learned this idea of creation, creating business or whatever, creating opportunities, ideas, and then selling. And then really it laddered into real estate after that. And so we've done a lot of real estate deals, but I just find myself to be more of a serial entrepreneur. I love deals. I love chasing deals. I love opportunities. And then really over the last few years, you get to a place where you have enough, and life is good, and still, you need deeper meaning. And so most of my efforts over the past 7 or 8 years, even though I'm still buying and selling businesses and real estate and everything else, is really turned more to philanthropic and then also faith-based work, really because at some point, you can affect your life, your wife's life, your family's life. You can affect the next generation's life, your kids, your grandkids. And at some point, it's like, if you're not making a greater impact on this world, then it all seems meaningless at some point. So that's kind of where we're at today in life. And that's where I am.
That's great. Thank you. We're going to get to that philanthropic work here in a few minutes. That's why you're a perfect guest for this podcast specifically, where we're talking about creating means that can do good in the world. Can you tell us, are you at liberty to talk about what that TV show was on Fox?
Yeah, no, not really. I'm not supposed to talk about it. Haven't talked about it in years. I tell it offline every once in a while, but yeah, we sold a show. 4 or 5 of us sold a show to Fox, and have been under an NDA for a long time.
Awesome. Well, I won't ask you to violate that on here, but I may come visit you in your pool house there in Florida and try to talk about it. What was your very first business, Eddie?
Very first business was an advertising agency. After I left radio and TV, I had a bunch of clients that I felt like were not getting serviced in just the general ad space. And I had a passion for marketing, a degree in marketing, and really built that business, ended up selling that business at a multiple that I had no idea was worth and wasn't even intentional. And then I've had another ad agency since then. I've sold that ad agency, and then now we have another digital marketing company. So it's one of those veins that I always kind of keep going back to.
That's really, really great. And this question isn't in the list, so I apologize, but do you see parallels with Grant Cardone, real estate mogul, and started with ad agencies and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. And Andrew, my partner, and I, we've spent a lot of time down in South Florida with Grant, and Grant's become a friend. And there's a lot of parallels there. I mean, like he's built a model where the common man can create his own success through social awareness, and then leverage that with the masses to essentially purchase massive assets. And so I think it's a really interesting model. It's one I've dissected a lot. I've spent a lot of time down there with his team. I built a program called Empire, which is an operating system for businesses, and they've leveraged some of that in their business. But yeah, we enjoy friendship down there.
That's really neat. I'm using one of Grant's 32 rules for success today,
Yeah,
which is be unreasonable. And
yeah.
in the spirit of being unreasonable, I thought I'd ask Eddie to come on the podcast. So thanks for doing that.
Glad to.
You are a serial entrepreneur, I think, more than just a real estate guy. So which one of your current initiatives is giving you the most life and why?
I started a brand new private equity firm, a little bit different than most private equity firms, where I didn't go raise capital from others. I just took my capital, my business partner's capital, and a little bit of capital from another person, and began to rapidly increase the business acquisition side. And we do have quite a few real estate holdings as well, around 4,000 doors. And so we've got a really sizable real estate portfolio, but then we also have the businesses, the private equity side. And it's called Collective Influence. Collective Influence is the private equity firm that we own and operate. I'm the CEO of, and it has my heart and my passion right now. Mainly because about 2 years ago, it was during COVID, a friend that the both of us have, named Andrew Cordell, who really was in a place of retirement for himself, and I was too. I had sold 76 of my 86 companies in 2019, and Andrew had kind of stepped off the road. He was traveling internationally and doing really well for himself. It was kind of at the point of retirement too, and he asked me to come sit down in my office in Atlanta. And so he came and sat down, and he pitched me on this idea. He was like, "What if we go start a firm just like you built?" I had a firm called Affinity in Kansas City, and he said, "But," and I was like, I'm kind of tired of that. I said that's kind of run its course, and I said I'm just kind of doing real estate right now, messing around with the foundations that we have." And he said, "Well, what if we actually took a different approach?" He said, "What if we took our skill sets?" And he said, "And number one, we only hired amazing people. Like, we only hire rock stars. Like, we hire the best of the best, and we just pay for it." He said, "And let's go after the best of the best in every category that we're going to hire for." And I said, "Okay." And after I went from like 4 to 6,000 employees down to like 40 employees right before COVID. So I was kind of done with spending a lot of time with employees at that point. And so that sounded pretty good. But then where he really hooked me on, he's like, "And what if he said, what if you and I took a majority of our profit and we just exponentially increased your output on the philanthropic side?" And I said, "You'd be interested in it?" He said, "Yeah." And I have two deals that he said I feel like we should look at that could be really large right off the bat. And so we jumped in, and I think we're not even really 12. We might have just passed our 12-month mark. We did. And we've already bought 13 companies, and we've already had 3 exits. We exited 3 companies last year for 91.5 million. And it's just been this like massive, very, very quick ride. And it's been good. So it's like, I think that's got my heart right now, just because it's something that's new, it's fresh, I'm building it, and it's the parent to a lot of other companies.
That is really wonderful. Now, I know how to find and analyze a real estate deal. How do you find and analyze acquiring a business? What does that look like?
It's just like a real estate deal. I love real estate as well, and it has to about when you're looking at like multifamily, for instance, and I do a lot of multifamily investing. Um, you're typically looking for that value add opportunity. You're typically looking for the something that someone else left on the table, or something that someone else was unwilling, that they were not unwilling to put time and effort into it. It's like you look at a house rehab, right? It's like you take it off of someone who either didn't have the capital or didn't have the time or the expertise to do it. You take it off of them, you do it, and then you reap the benefit and reward. That's what buying a business is all about. I look for distressed capital businesses or distressed people businesses. We really don't buy distressed products because it's really hard to overcome a bad product in today's day and age, with Google reviews and everything else. And so we look for that. There's a lot of baby boomers that are exiting their businesses right now. They don't have somebody to leave it to. There's a lot of distressed companies sitting on big Fortune 500 companies' balance sheets where they just acquired them to try to contain the market. But now, with things tightening up in the economy, they're shedding it. So it's kind of corporate, divestiture. And so that's what we're looking for. And we also look for very specific vertically integrated companies. For instance, I bought FitCon, the world's largest fitness convention, last year. And then downstream from that, because they have 3 million users or 3 million people that have come through their platform, then it's like we've bought a supplement company. We're looking at clothing companies. It's like downstream from that, we'll buy multiple companies that parallel with that data.
That's awesome. Am I free to ask you about a specific business?
Sure.
Sure. So I heard a rumor that you have acquired Crumble Cookie, and I think a
No.
lot of no.
No, I did not acquire Crumble Cookie. That's not true.
Okay, all right, we'll put that one to bed then. Maybe if they go distressed, you'll grab them.
I would love that. I think that's a great business model. One of my buddies is taking them on right now. He's building a company called Dirty Dough, and the guy's brilliant. He built this cookie company. Basically, he perfected the Crumble Cookie model. His name's Bennett, and Crumble's suing him over the sprinkles he uses on his cookie, just trying to slow him down because he's growing so fast. But yeah, I would love to be in that business.
That is awesome. And what's the name of that cookie company again?
It's called Dirty Dough.
Dirty Dough. Okay, so if
Yeah.
you're listening to this, go over to dirtydough.com, order some cookies, and let's help this
That's
guy
right.
out.
Let's support Bennett Maxwell.
Now, we're finding deals in real estate largely right now by relationship, because the market has slowed down. And if you're going to find something that's largely off market, and you have to, for me, being a smaller player, it's definitely creative financing.
Sure.
How are you finding businesses? Is it the same model?
It's the same model. Relationships are everything in both real estate and business. It's like, I see it as like, if you're buying off the MLS, right, or you're buying off of brokers, then you're going to pay a premium, and you've got to be really tight in your underwriting. Same thing with business. There's a lot of business brokers out there. And the thing is businesses are far more distressed and have far more triggers than real estate does today. Real estate holds that hard asset value that a business doesn't. A business is typically an emotional value. Whether you value it at 5 times EBITDA or 10 times EBITDA, really is typically an emotional thing. And real estate has comps. It's hard to argue the value of real estate.
That's really neat. I'm going to look more into that, and you give me something to go down to the rabbit hole on. So I love that. How are you doing so many things concurrently that are also successful? We have all done way too many things at one time and failed, but you seem to be succeeding at a lot.
Yeah, I think that's the question I get asked more than anything as I speak. And that is like, and especially when I was running 86 companies at a time, we were running 86. It really came down to systems, processes, and people. Our systems and processes we've perfected in a system we call Empire, the Empire operating system. And that's how all of my businesses run. It has the same voice, the same language, the same, similar KPIs. We have the same methodology. It doesn't matter if it's a service-based business, if it's a product-based business, if it's a real estate, if it's property management. It all operates under this concept we call Empire. And we have about 1,500 other companies in the United States that actually run an Empire. So we proved the model on ourselves, and now it's become a big product that we sell as well. But Empire is the systems and processes. Then it comes down to, can you hire the right people to make sure that the systems and processes are adhered to? And really, I have to say that all my success is based on the people I surround myself with. I find myself to be an analyst at the top. I find myself to be, really integrated into the data of our company, to actually like seeing what's happening on a daily basis as they come up through my dashboards and things like that. Understanding through the systems and processes what things I need to deal with and what things I should be putting my time towards. But it comes down to great people, and I've got some phenomenal people. My chief of staff, he's led SEAL Team 3. He's one of the most decorated SEALs that's ever been, in battle. Is an amazing guy. Larry Yatch has written many books. He's our chief of staff. Andrew is second to none when it comes to vision. Andrew's kind of a goofball, crazy guy, but he's all vision. I've got an amazing COO. We've hired former NFL players, former military. We've hired some amazing people, and that's what makes it all run.
That's really cool to hear. Now, I don't want to lose the fact that you said people are the key to your success, because that's so true. But if somebody wanted to take their great people and throw them at a tool like Empire, how would they find that?
Yeah, if you just go to Empire OM for operating model, empireom.com, you can see it there. If you just hit contact and tell them that you saw me on a podcast, they'll give you free access to it, I'm sure. To me, it's a legacy piece. Like, I just give it away as much as I can, because I feel like I found some secret sauce that I felt like made a massive impact for me. And so a lot of times I'm in churches and other places and I just give it away because it's like, if I can help a business that has, especially like what you're talking about today, this empowering people to do good, it's like I love giving the operating system out, because it's like if people can learn to create efficiency in their business, they'll do intrinsically better, and good things.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you empower people to do good, they'll do good things.
Mhm.
I'm going to check that out personally. I love that. Now, one thing I'm curious about is your ability to exit a business. They call you the exit king.
Yeah.
That's good. And how are you exiting so successfully? And why is that such a good thing?
Yeah. So what happens in business is that, and it's like real estate. I love real estate. I'm a buy and hold guy. I hold real estate as long as I possibly can. But we have a mechanism in our real estate business that if it's going to take me 50 years worth of yield to actually pay me back the equity that I can't get out of the house, like a lot of times you can only refi and only pull so much equity out. And so I have houses that are sitting there sometimes with so much equity that it's going to take it 50 years worth of yield to actually pay me what the equity is. So we sell those assets. Even though I love holding on assets, it's like it's easier for me to exponentially increase that money today than to wait 50 years worth of yield to actually create an exponential value on that money. Same thing goes with a business. A business, I've learned to create value multipliers in a business. Every time I've sold a business, we've sold over 100 now. Um, I get asked three things. The first thing I get asked is, your EBITDA, your bottom line, your net profit, right? The second thing you get asked is, what technology or IP, like what is proprietary to your business? It's why O'Leary always says, why should I give you 500 grand when I can go replicate what you're doing for 300 grand, And it's like, what are you doing different? That's that IP portion of it. So maybe it's technology or way you do things. And then number three, it's always about the operating system that you're operating on. And so I kept getting those questions in my early career, and that's why I developed the operating system, was because I wanted to be able to potentially exit at a massive multiple that would take me a lifetime to get out of the business. You think about the three businesses that we sold this year. All three of those businesses were not doing really more than let's see, probably combined $8 million a year in profit. So it would have taken me another, 8.5 years worth of sweat, toil, hard work to actually get that profit if I didn't have a market downturn, if a competitor didn't come in and steal space from me, and so I could take that multiple now and then go rinse and repeat. And so for me, the rinse and repeat model has been really powerful because I don't have to work a lifetime in those businesses to yield the profit that I want. Most people think, well, man, if I could just get into this position where my business is just yielding a ton of cash and it's a cash cow for me and I can just live the rest of my life and I'll go invest that cash. For me, I look at it and I go, well, what if I could take the cash off the table for the next 10 years today and actually go invest that today? How much further will I be down the road in 10 years? And so I believe that I've perfected the art of selling the business. And now I have so many private equity firms that are chasing me. They call once a month and say, what businesses do you have or that are in the pipeline that you can potentially sell for me? Because I leave meat on the bone. I still, I'll negotiate fair, and I give them an operating system that if they lose my executive staff, like sometimes I'll keep my executive staff with me to go do something else. If they lose that executive staff, I can insert good people in there that have followed the same exact process and they'll still get the exact same result out of that business. And so because I perfected the operating system, I don't get golden handcuffs like a lot of people do when they exit that business, where they get stuck for 2 or 3 years afterwards, still making sure that the business is maintaining its profit and output. And so for me, that is the reason I do it. Is like I heard one time Warren Buffett, he said, statistically, it's impossible to actually become a billionaire if you're only a millionaire. And he said, because of taxes, because of the way our economy is structured, he says statistically it's impossible. He said that's why there was, whatever it was, however many 100 billionaires there are in the United States. And he said, so you actually have to find exponential multipliers in your life and in your business to actually get to the billion. So in 2019, I I had bought a group of 30 some companies, took it to 86 companies, and then the total exit was 1.27 billion. Now I only owned 14% of that company, but I got it to that 1 billion mark. Well, the way that I did it was through this exponential model of buying, selling, creating, selling on multiples, so that I didn't have to actually work a lifetime to get the value out of the business. And so this private equity firm that Andrew and I are building today, we just got our valuation back after I think it was our 11th month in business, and we were already valued at 380 million. And so like I'll get to the 5 billion mark fairly quickly this time, because I'm using the same exact principles and I'm multiplying at a rapid, rate of return.
That's brilliant. And 14% of 1.7 billion is a
Yeah.
heck of a lot more than 14% of 100,000, right?
That's right. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
no, that's awesome. Now I have heard of, companies acquiring companies, like you mentioned the Fortune 500 model. Are you and Andrew somewhat unique in having an equity firm that purchases companies, or is that a replicated model that I just haven't heard of?
It's a model. So the private equity firms as a whole do buy businesses like this. However, where we find our niche is private equity firms usually take big institutional capital, and then they buy companies at 110 million, 120 million, and then they turn them into 200 million, and then they sell them to someone else, or they basically are giving a return back to the investor. They want to buy big companies that are very, very stable. What private equity companies typically don't do is buy the companies like we buy them from 5 to 20 million. And because typically they're unstable, like they're unstable and have issues. Well, the thing is like that instability and that issue that they have is something that we can solve, and we can replicate. We replicate and solve all the time. So what we actually do is, I believe that like you've got all these small businesses, and I see those as like the minnows, and the big private equity firms are the whales. The thing is the whales have to eat a whole lot of minnows to actually get full. So what we are is, I think we're that midstream, fish that's like that's gobbling up the minnows, the 1, 5, 10, $20 million businesses. And then we can take those to 60, 80, 100 million worth of value. And then they're the easiest buyer that we could ever come across. Like, they've already got institutional capital. There's $1.1 trillion right now in private equity, sitting liquid on the sidelines, ready to buy businesses. The thing is they can't buy the small mom and pop, store down the street. They have to buy 10 mom and pop stores for it to even make sense for them,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we play in that middle ground.
Okay. So I think I'm the king of bad analogies. So to relate this to a real estate world, are you buying distressed and selling to value add, or are you buying value add and selling to turnkey?
Both. So
Okay.
that's a great illustration, actually. So we love distressed. We love distressed, and then there's the meat on the bone I was talking about is some of the value add that essentially they get, right? And the value add that they'll typically get is, for instance, so I have a coffee company, and I know you've bought a lot of coffee, I think, from our coffee company,
Yeah.
right? Because
Let's plug them. Because Coffee out of Georgia, they have online sales. The shipping is very fast. The service is very friendly. And most importantly, the coffee is great. It's very fresh. If you are into your pour overs or espresso, this is the coffee you want. It's just great stuff. Excellent bloom on a pour over, excellent pressures, 6 bars always on your espresso. So check them out, Because Coffee out of Georgia.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the plug. So that coffee company started as a passion project with a buddy of mine, Doug. Doug's the roaster. I was the business side of it. Got him to come down to Georgia and start it. Doug, I would love to exit the coffee business someday. But if you look at the model, we're looking at what we call Blue Bottle model, which is Blue Bottle was a San Francisco-based coffee company. They ended up, I think, at like 16 to 18 stores, but their valuation was massive, and they had like 300 million. Well, they sold for over 300 million to Starbucks. Starbucks bought Blue Bottle. Starbucks needed the acquisition to expand their brand and expand their offering. But what they really wanted was Blue Bottle had a roasting process. And so a lot of Starbucks Private Reserve now is actually Blue Bottle's roasting process. So Blue Bottle got theirs, while Starbucks also got their value add. So it's a little different in real estate in that Blue Bottle wasn't distressed, right? But it was still value add to Starbucks, because they, got to acquire all their great people, all their great locations. They got to get all their roasting technology. And when I look at our coffee company, like, I like the Blue Bottle model. I don't want to create a Starbucks. What I want to create is a small boutique environment with a very particular roasting, styles and techniques, replicate that across 10 to 15 stores. And then the exit is probably something to someone greater who there's still opportunity there. So it's not necessarily value add at that point. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I was actually talking to Doug this morning about the Glenn Stromberg model with
Yeah.
properties in Chicago. I thought, how cool would it be to have an industrial location where your roaster is that looked like a speakeasy that
Yeah.
was, more executive just for coffee tastings and only
Yeah.
pour overs and craft brews. Anyways, I love that model and I love what you guys are doing with it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Eddie, you are a culture creator and you're a shaper. So how are you currently shaping business cultures that you get to impact?
Yeah. So I believe that business is fundamentally better when you make the lives of the people that work with you better. We don't always do that in business. You can't always provide the optimum place for them to work or the optimum environment. But what I do know is that sometimes winning is the optimum environment people need to exist in. Um, I would say that most people think when they hear me say something like that, they're thinking about a Google environment where there's, ping pong tables and foosball tables and all this like fun. The thing is the culture I'm creating is a culture of winning. And as we win in business, whether it's a great experience or not, you're creating winners who then go on and win. I love that when the Jordan documentary came out in COVID. I don't know if you remember that, but that moment where Jordan basically he was like, um, they may not have liked playing with me, but they liked the outcome of playing with me. And I think that sometimes like that's what we're doing is creating a winning culture. Where when you teach people to win, it gives them the confidence to go win again. And if you kind of turn them loose to go win on their own, sometimes like it's actually okay too. And so it's funny. I feel like I've bought and sold 100+ companies, but I bet you if, we did this at one point a few years ago, I bet you the people that I've employed that have gone and started businesses or gone and acquired businesses or did big real estate deals, it's probably in the 300 to 400 range. And so to me, that's a measure of success. I'm not trying to create the Google environment for working and, make it fun and playful and everybody loves it and wears the t-shirt. What I'm trying to do is create a path to success that is through hard work, it's through difficulty, it's through toil, it's through struggle. But in the right process, it creates winning. And if you learn to win, you typically can win again.
Well, I love that, Eddie, because look at the difference there. One is because of my qualifications, I get to go sit in a complex that will treat me very, very good. The
Hmm.
other is because I can learn, I can go impact the world around me. I can start whatever
Yeah.
business I want. I can become as
Right.
successful as I have drive to become successful.
Right.
And I think you're doing far better with the latter. That's really great.
Thank
I
you.
guess maybe you've answered that, but on that same point, next question, what legacy do you hope to leave when people talk
Yeah.
about you in 20 years or in 50 years? What do you hope they say?
One of the big legacies that I'm leaving behind is empire, because it's a way of doing business that I think, as people get turned on to it, they realize it is a superior way typically than what they've learned. And I don't think that that's proprietary to me. I mean, I've been taught by so many great mentors in my life that I don't have some corner on that piece. But I really hope that what happens in the next 20, 30 years of my life is that people recognize the social good that we do more than the corporate good that we do. Of course, I want to leave a massive legacy to my kids. I have 3 boys. I want them to be successful and happy and kind and great people in this world that are serving others. Um, but I really want to make a massive impact on people around the world, people that are less fortunate, people that struggle for opportunity, and that's what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah, that's really great. I think quite a few entrepreneurs who will listen to this can empathize with the fact that you do move at a fast pace and that you do a lot. I think the advice that we collectively get is slow down. You're going to burn
Hmm.
out. And if we slowed down, we would burn out because
Right.
slowness would kill us.
Yeah.
But where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you think this new
Yeah.
business model can keep you occupied or will it lead to greater things?
Yeah. This new business model is going to keep me occupied for a while. And I've told my wife, we've had this like kind of agreement. I'm 43 years old that When I hit 50, I'll start to slow down a little bit. I don't know that I will, but we have this agreement, so I'm going to try it. But for me, I've been told to slow down, be more cautious, be careful my whole life. Um, for me, I feel like that's the greatest disservice you could do to me. The things that slow me down keep me from creating at my highest level. And so, my wife and I, she's fantastic at just like supporting who I am and letting it turn loose, and then she'll rein it in sometimes and say, hey, the boys need some more time with you, or I need some more time with you, or I need you to focus on this. And she's super honest about all those things, but she really is supportive in just turning me loose and using the God-given talents and abilities that I was gifted with. And so for me, working 70, 80 hours a week, like I still love that. Like I live for it. Like I enjoy it. And so when you get to create and you're creating the things you love, it's really hard to turn that off. And so you're creating at all times. And then when you're creating with the people you love, then it's like it's exponentially better. Like I love my staff. I love the people I get to work with. I really enjoy going into work every day. I enjoy traveling with them. I enjoy hanging out with them. And so, for me, next 5 years, I'm going to be, as long as I have good health and good mind, I expect that I'm working as hard, if not harder than I am right now. And just putting in the time and the hours to keep creating.
That's really wonderful. I love that you said the things that slow me down keep me from creating at my highest level. I
Mhm.
absolutely love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that you take that a little bit deeper. I think that I'm actually not a steward of capital, I'm a steward of time. And one thing that my dad gave me as a kid was so powerful was he used to say things like this to me. He used to say, Eddie, if time is your most valuable resource, then why don't you spend more time managing your time than managing your money? And he would say things like that sunk in later in life. And he would do practical things like when I was 16 and I went to buy a car, I think it was a $2,800, $2,800 1987 Pontiac Grand Prix. And I walked in and I said, hey, Dad, I want to buy this car. I've got the money saved up. It's $2,800. He said, no. He said, it's not $2,800. He said, how much do you make an hour? I said, I make like $5 an hour. He said, no, this car cost you this many hours, this many months, this many days of your life. And everything in my past was a equation of time, not money. And so I do that to my kids all the time too, right? Like they want to buy, they want to buy a video game for $50, $60 or whatever they are, $80 now. And it's like, well, are you really willing to give up 4 hours of your life, plus all the hours you're going to, give playing this thing? But 4 hours of your life or 8 hours of your life or a whole day's worth of work for this item, is that really what it's worth? And so when I talk about slowing down, like I am, if I protect anything in my life, it's my time. I have multiple assistants that help me with this, and we scrub down and try to maximize my time at every single level, because that is all I really have. And so if you slow me down, you're going to slow down the creativity that I love. And so the more I can steward my time, the more creativity is the outcome.
I love that. Thank you. Now, since we did say time, and since you mentioned you just threw out 5 bricks, like somebody
Yeah.
saying $20, when do you think you'll have the valuation? 5 billion. You're at 300 and some million now. What's your goal?
I think it'll be April of 2024.
Wow.
We
Eddie, that's
we
incredible.
we pro forma. We do a thing called a cash flow pro forma. It's how we run all our businesses, and we actually architect it out based on growth and expected growth. And so I believe it'll be April 2024.
That's really incredible. Good for you guys, and keep running. Let's switch topics real quick to Empower Good. I know we're already at time. I want to respect your highly valuable
Sure.
time. But what are you and your family passionate about giving back to? You've mentioned philanthropy a couple times. Talk to us
Yeah.
about that. And
We have
also tell us, if you would, why that's so important to you.
Yeah. We have two foundations. The first foundation is Christian Media International, CMI. I at my lowest point in my life, in my early 20s, I had a bunch of money, a bunch of success, but no purpose and no guidance. And faith played such a massive role in my life in turning around who I was. I was suicidal. I had more money than I knew what to do with. I had a great life. I had lots of success, but I was thinking suicidal thoughts, wondering what life was all about. Why should I live? And faith played such a huge role in my life, and my dad was a huge instrument of that. That for me, the faith component of my life is so intrinsic to who I am. Like you couldn't dissect me away from. You couldn't say Eddie is who he is without the faith that he has, And so for me, Christian Media International is about giving every person in this world the opportunity to at least experience that. Their choice, but the chance to hear it and experience it. And that's our goal. Is I think we're on path. I think by 2026, our goal is to actually put every single person under the sound of the gospel, which is my belief and understanding of faith and coming to faith in Christ. The second one is what we call impact others, and we just started this one about almost 2 years ago now. And impact others is really more humanitarian. The more I traveled the world, the more I saw great need. And I saw it in 4 areas that we decided that we would take on. The first area was like the nourishment of children. There's so many children that are just starving around the world. So feeding centers, and not just feeding them, they're feeding their bellies, but also feeding their minds. So we do feeding and education. The second thing is we have orphanages. There's kids out there that just have no hope, have no chance, and so we have orphanages. The third one is clean water projects. So much around the world is affected by something as simple as clean water, and so we're digging, I think, 7 wells right now in Ghana. We've got 2 wells going on in Trichy, India. We've got another well being dug in Nigeria. So we do clean water wells and water projects. And then lastly, fourth is building sustainable businesses. The opportunity that I have in the United States and we have in the United States just doesn't quite exist in a lot of other countries. And so we've helped start a lot of sustainable businesses over the past few years. And that's a passion of ours. So we have built a water buffalo farm in India, a woodworking plant in Laos, a sewing center in Nigeria, a taxi company in Ghana. And we love that. And so, but the give back as opposed to the model of like microfunding is to actually get them to give to whatever. And so we tie it to a lot of the opportunities that we have in these foreign countries. So the orphanages, the feeding centers, the water projects, we tie these businesses, we'll seed them, we'll teach them, we'll train them, let them run, but then they have to give a percentage of that business to help this community or whatever the project is. And so we've got one right now in Ecuador, Quito, Ecuador. There's a group down there called Dunamis, and Dunamis is a program that they rescue girls out of sex trafficking in Ecuador and all of Central America, South America. And we're building a coffee training center down in Quito. Doug's a part of that. And one of our baristas that actually was working at Because Coffee in Atlanta is actually leading the charge, and she's down in Ecuador right now setting it all up. And so we're funding all of that, but another business that we're building. So anyways, that's what I love to do, and that's what we try to put a lion's share of our effort and profit and capital into.
That is beautiful. I absolutely love that. I'd love to talk with one of your representatives offline.
Sure.
The listeners here know that I also have a W-2. I work at Faith Comes by Hearing. We offer just the pure word of God, just the Bible, in more than 1,700 languages on little solar powered MP3 devices. And I would love to get these in your cabs or in your sewing rooms or
that'd be awesome.
Where you're providing water. That would be great.
Love it.
All right. Lastly, 3 questions we ask every guest. It can be lightning round super fast. What are you reading right now?
I'm just reading for the second time a book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Anthony DeMello is an Indian Jesuit priest, super fascinating, and he talks about our relationships and connections in the world. But it's a book called Awareness. That's what I'm reading right now.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out. Best business or real estate book out there?
I still think the old ones like Robert Allen's, How to Buy a House with No Money Down, it still is like the fundamentals of real estate. I love Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki, even though it's not necessarily a real estate book, it is a real estate book. I go to the old ones. There's a lot of new ones out there. A lot of guys have written great books. I wrote a book called Time, Wealth, and Purpose, and it has a lot of real estate components in it. But yeah, I go back to the old guys, Robert Allen and Robert Kiyosaki.
That's awesome. We'll link those in. Time, Wealth, and Purpose. Eddie, is that available on Amazon?
I believe it is. We're putting out a second edition, so it might not be online for another couple of weeks on the second edition.
Okay, great. I'll make sure I get a link to that. And lastly, who's inspiring you to do more and empower good?
Yeah, who is inspiring me right now it's funny. I feel like I always got inspiration from without before. My staff now is actually the most inspirational tool. Every person we hired this time for Collective Influence, and I think we're up to 62 or 64 employees, we brought them on, and yes, they're rock stars, they're top of their game, but with this adage, like, our goal is not to just build companies, our goal is to exponentially give. So every week we put out a report of what we're doing around the world, and my staff actually drives me today more than anyone else. My chief of staff, Larry, is always talking to me about it. They're begging me to take them on trips, and we've got a trip coming up in Honduras, and I think I'm taking 2 of my staff members, or maybe 3 of the staff members, with us. It's actually our staff. It's coming from within now. It's like we've built this community of people that really want to make an impact on the world, and now it's like they're the ones driving it. How much more can we give? What can we do, to support something, in addition?
Well, that makes total sense. As parents, our kids drive us to do better, and we're inspired by them and by their potential. So it just makes sense. We are inspired today. We were able to help 10 families adopt last year, and
Awesome.
we love the Omna Foundation. I don't plan to be in the nonprofit world, but I plan to leverage the nonprofit world with our proceeds. So we'll link all of those
Absolutely.
below. Eddie, thanks for being a wonderful guest today. Listeners, hope you get out there, build some businesses, buy some real estate, and empower good.